All right, as the world braces for new tariffs that go into effect tomorrow, the relationship between the United States and its closest ally has become strained. Canada's new prime minister had a conversation with President Trump last week and later said there is a lot of work that needs to be done to build back trust. I want to bring in correspondent Mercedes Stephenson from Global TV in Canada to talk more about this. So Mercedes, how is Canada bracing for these new tariffs?
Well, honestly, Vlad, with a lot of uncertainty because we don't know what they're going to look like. We've heard lots of rumors and innuendo about how much it could be, what products they could be on. We're certainly anticipating it could be on things like dairy here in Canada, which in Canada is essentially a monopoly. You have to get permission from the government to have dairy cows, to have chickens, to have eggs. And that's one of the things that President Donald Trump has been upset about and says that it's an unfair trade practice. So I think there's a couple of things like that we're in particular bracing for. There's questions about what this could look like for the auto sector, for the rest of our agriculture sector, and for Canadian manufacturing. But at this point, we really don't have a sense of how significant those tariffs might be, and therefore how hard Canada might be hit. So the government has a number of plans that they have not unveiled for various circumstances that they're ready to retaliate with. We do know they're planning retaliatory tariffs if Canada's hit, and we're fully expecting that to happen. But what exactly that plan will look like or what cards they're prepared to play, for example, like cutting off energy or putting an export tax on it going to the United States, still remains to be seen.
So as you know, the Prime Minister has slammed President Trump for his insistence that Canada become the 51st state. How is that rhetoric shaping that relationship? And more importantly, I guess, Mercedes, explain to our audience here in the United States how that is leading to a surge. I always felt Canadians were proud of their heritage and proud of their country, but I'm seeing now in my Instagram and in my social media, people proudly displaying the flag, proudly displaying the fact that they're not carrying American products in their stores or buying American goods as a way to signify their patriotism.
I've never seen this much sort of overt Canadian patriotism. It's atypical for Canada. The only times we've sort of seen it is around, for example, Afghanistan, when we were losing a lot of soldiers, and people would line the Highway of Heroes, which is where the soldiers were returned home to their families. But Canada's not a country that has sort of the overt patriotism that the United States does. It's much more subdued. It's much more quiet. Well, it has gone fully overt, in-your-face, angry. Canadians feel attacked. They feel that this was a great relationship, our closest friend and ally. We all have American friends and family. A lot of my family lives south of the border. So there was a lot of shock and feelings of betrayal. You can find lists now of how to avoid American products in Canada. The government here is trying to remove internal trade barriers between provinces so that trade can go more east-west instead of north-south. So all of those things have flared, perhaps to the good of the country in some ways. Now, when it comes to the relationship between the president and the prime minister, it has improved. But the reason for that is because we have a new prime minister who's currently running, hoping to be elected by the Canadian people. He was sworn in a couple of weeks ago. His name is Mark Carney, and he is a former Wall Street guy. He knows Donald Trump. So he thinks he can handle this a little bit more like a business deal when you talk to people around him. And there was a surprisingly positive call between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump on Friday. We were all shocked when we saw the outcome of what Donald Trump put on Truth Social. For the first time, he wasn't calling the Canadian Prime Minister governor. He was calling him Prime Minister. He said they agreed on a lot of things and essentially endorsed Carney to win the election. Now, what effect will that have on tariffs? If anything, we'll find out, but certainly off to a better start than the relationship between Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, no, you make an excellent point. I mean, the tariffs are one issue that have to do with the economy and very different from President Trump trolling members of the media, for example, or his opponents by suggesting that Canada be the 51st state. I think those are sort of two separate things. One has real life repercussions. The other, the talk about 51st state or Governor Trudeau is nonsense. Everybody knows that that's not going to happen, but it keeps the media chins wagging here in the United States and around the world, perhaps even in Canada. So, but what I do find fascinating is the effect that it's having on Canadians, even if it's not potentially serious. Canadians and taking pride in Canada, and you're right, the level of patriotism that we see in the United States. I've lived all over the world, never see anything like it anywhere else in the world. No one else in the world wears flags of their, flag pins of their country or all the stuff that we do here. But I think it's interesting that it's having the effect that it's having on Canadians and that you are seeing that level of patriotism that you don't normally see. So it's really fascinating stuff. Mercedes, really, really great breakdown. Thank you for joining us.